Anyone? Please use this opportunity to silence your phones. And we are going live on the YouTube. All right. All right. So welcome everyone to Tell 86 My Rainbow, and welcome to the Bureau of General Services Queer Division. My name is Greg Newton. I'm co-founder of the Bureau with my partner, Don Fairbairn. We have been doing this since 2012, and we've been here at the center since 2014. I have a short explanation for our lengthy name, Bureau of General Services Queer Division, is that we're a government agency for a government that does not exist. And this is the service that we provide, and is holding this space for queer culture. So we're an all volunteer organization, which means I'm going to ask you for donations. We have a suggested donation of $10, which we split with the storytellers. And for those of you online, you can donate on Venmo at BGSQD. But I'll pass this around. And before I introduce our special guest host, I should also say, for those of you who don't know Tell, this is number 86, meaning there have been 85 other Tells before this. So it is almost, next February will be 10 years old. And it was started by Dre Campbell. Hi, Dre, if you're watching out there from DC. I think Dre's in DC, is that right? Yeah. Yeah, Dre started this back in 2014 and has kept it going month after month. And it's been a lovely little affirming place that she's made for us. So we're super happy with that. I'm going to read a land acknowledgement, and then I'm going to turn it over to Darlinda, and we're going to jump into the stories, jump into the rainbow. I mean, we're kind of there all of that. That's where we live. And so the Bureau acknowledges that our organization operates on the unceded land of the Munsee Lenape, and we are actively seeking to partner with and provide material support to a local queer Indigenous organization. We hope to make an announcement about this partnership in the near future, but in the meantime, we encourage you to join the Bureau in signing up to make a monthly donation to the American Indian Community Houses Manhattan Fund. The Manhattan Fund, according to its website, is an invitation to all settlers and non-native people who wish to acknowledge the legacy of theft and genocide that comprise the history of New York City and the United States. And you can find out more at manhattanfund.org. And now, please put your hands together for the Darlinda, just Darlinda, international performance artist and burlesque performer for nearly 2 decades.
Thank you, Greg. Hi, everybody. All right. Well, so when Dre asked me to curate tonight and host tonight, I was super excited because actually they suggested, like, what about my rainbow as a theme? I was like, yeah, that's great. Because I have done a lot of work with rainbows in my career, my nearly 2 decades. To hear someone else say that, Greg, is a little rough. But yay, but also like I don't need to be ageist to myself. Like, no, that's amazing that I've been able to do this right on, right? All right. So tonight we have an amazing lineup. I'm really excited that who I asked said yes. We're going to start with Ponde. Then we have the set, and then we have Nadia as well. So it's just going to be really an incredible lineup. Everybody at home and everybody here has a good time, and feel free to make noise at home and also make noise here. Because storytelling isn't is for everybody, and but everybody who's telling stories likes to know that people are interested. So like I said, I have been sort of engulfed in rainbows my whole life. When I was born, my mom made this like cool stuffed cloud with rainbow ribbons coming down. Gabe, I just started, so good. Yeah. With rainbow ribbons coming down over my crib, and then I also had like a matching smaller cloud with rainbow ribbons as a throw pillow. So this is what I looked at, you know, as an infant, as a newborn infant. And I really think that had a huge impression on me because I have been obsessed with rainbows ever since. So, and I also learned that my great grandfather Moshe in Russia was he was in the army, and when he got out, a lot of Jews were drafted into the Russian army, and he got out and he you know went to school to he took a science class, and he saw the teacher make a rainbow with water and light, and he was like, oh well, I don't believe in God anymore. And this was, I'm studying in the yeshiva, like studying like super intense Judaism, and like was like, oh cool, well that's not a thing. So my family was really we had a really cool, like I grew up in this really small town. It was a very small Jewish community, maybe like 100 people in it. And what I liked about Judaism was the community. I wasn't really into like the Christianity aspect. And as I learned more and more about Judaism, I learned that most of it is, stolen from like earth-based religions, earth-based spirituality. And I'm like, oh, cool. So like after there's just a spring celebration, like celebrating the earth coming back to life. So I also, being part of this hippie community, Northern California Jews, astrology was a big thing. So it's like, I don't believe in God, but I believe, come on in. Yeah. There's a door right there, folks, at home. Well, I don't believe in God. I really believe in my astrological chart. I'm like, yeah, I'm a Leo with a Scorpio rising and an Aries moon. I'm like, nobody else can, and like, I got a lot of like, Virgo in my chart, and I've got a lot of Libra in my chart, and so I'm like, gotta be beautiful and perfect, everything, but it's messy, all of the other stuff. And I'm a little baby on the inside, so it's all that happening is inside of me. So my mom, when I had my bat mitzvah, she gave me the gift of having my chart read. And I was read by a singer-songwriter, psychic astrologer named Antonia Lamb, and she was amazing, like folk music, but New York. Like she was from New York, so she had this amazing accent and like long, gray hair, and she was incredible and really got me. When she read my chart, she said, "Oh well, your Venus is in Gemini," and I was like, oh, I'm bisexual. Oh, cool. That makes so much sense. And like, this is before queer with the word, and like before like now I have a problem with bisexual because I feel like it doesn't honor like non-binary people, and I'm attracted to all people. And anyway, so the rainbow has just been around me in all these ways. And people are like, well, kids who love rainbows, they're probably gay. It's like, well, most kids like rainbows because they're fucking cool, And I remember one time my stepmom said to me, she was like, oh, we can't even have rainbows, anymore because they're gay. And I was like, I was like, oh, that's right to say. But I didn't, I was still a kid, so I wasn't able to really like master that. And I just, so I'll tell you about the work that I did. I'm going to take this off, because I can move around. I can go over here and say hi to you. So the work that I did as a rainbow performance artist was a project called A Year in Rainbow. And a yarn rainbow was where, who here doesn't know about it? Okay, cool, all right, cool. So, but I don't know, any of you, I don't know. So a yarn rainbow was a project that I started as it inspired by a friend of mine named Morty Diamond, who's a performance artist, a writer, a director, a trans man. He did a yarn rainbow where he wore pink every day and wanted to just kind of live in the space of wearing a color that has been so gendered for women and girls, and to live in it in his masculine body. And he did that, and I was really inspired. And then he told me about a lot of performance artists, Annie Sprinkles being one of them, who did projects that had to do, Linda Montano, had to do all these projects that had to do with color. And Linda Montano, she would live for a whole year in one color. She would paint her house that color. She would just be enveloped in this color. And so I was just so inspired by all those people. And I thought, well, I should do a yarn rainbow, because even this was maybe like 5 years into my career as a burlesque performer. And I thought, well, I'm a little bored, even just that early. I was like, well, there's just like only so much you can do with like just taking your clothes off. There's a lot you can do. You can do a lot with striptease, but I felt like there's gotta be more to this. So I started this Life as Art project. Every other month I would wear one color, and every other month I would wear rainbow. And I stuck with the classic 6-color gay rainbow flag. Because it was easy to like break up into 6 months and 12 months. And it was an incredible project to do. At that time, I would do a blog every single day. I would take a picture every single day. And every other month, when I did the color months, I would do a show that had to do with that color. And it was really incredible. And then I did another show. Let's see, that was 2007 and 2008 and 2019. I did a show called One Woman Rainbow, which used the concept of chakras as a storytelling technique. So like red is like the root chakra, and it's, and so I kind of told the story of my beginning and like my birth and sexuality as well. And then I told, then like orange is the sacral chakra, and I also find that, spot of laughter as well as, divinity. But so I did my character, the Orangical Oracle, who's a comedic oracle. And then yellow is about the gut chakra. And so I did this like kind of lemon water ceremony. All this is a little bit comical because I can't take myself too seriously. Except for the green chakra, which is my heart chakra, and I told a story of an abusive love that I was in. And in a dance theater way. So, I made it dancing, things that are hard to dance. And then for blue, I did some kind of reckoning and used my voice and and then for purple's the crown chakra, and it's actually ultraviolet, but again, for my way of storytelling, I like to use the 6 colors. And so like today I'm wearing purple eyeshadow. I'm wearing purple eyeshadow because I wanted to like make sure my brain was working so I could tell stories and remember. I wouldn't have to rely on this, which I am a little bit. I think it's okay. So that was a really fun way to go. And then, that was November 2019 and the pandemic hit. So I had gone from performing literally 30 nights in a row at a festival in Australia. And I got back and I did okay for the first, let's see, until from like March till August. And then I was like, I'm going crazy. I need to make art. I have to do something like who am I? Because if I'm not on stage or not making art or not doing something that I feel like a part of business. So I decided to do your rainbow again. And so I wore the colors. I didn't do a blog, but I took a picture every day. And I made a video each. So there's like online on my website, darlangestoner.com. You can see all the videos. But it was such a great experience of like honoring color and rainbow and giving myself something to do and something to give back to everybody else at home. And one of the videos that I made was about, you know, the rainbow capitalism that's been happening. And I feel like I really noticed it at Pride 2019, because that was like the 60th anniversary, was it 60th anniversary? 50th anniversary. And so it was just like, you know, I mean, I'm just gonna tell you, even this shirt was marketed to, this shirt that I'm wearing was marketed to a friend, and I bought it. It fit me, and and it had a rainbow on it. But I, you know, so I made a video about it, because I collected the whole month of June. I collected all the videos that had been marketed to me on Instagram and Facebook, and some things that I'd seen out and about, but you know, it was still pandemic-y time, so I didn't go out and about, and I made a video about it. And I put on all this like rainbow makeup and this kind of like masculine clown way, and I was like, I'm gay, I'm being gay, this is how to be gay, you know. And it's just like this concept of like, you know, oh, if you wear a rainbow, you're gay. Like, here's how to be a homosexual, here's how you're gonna be a homosexual if you wear a rainbow. And it's like, that's not actually true. Like, you know, you can wear all black and still be gay. Lisette's wearing black. We'll see them shortly. You know, and there's just so many ways to be queer, and I think that is so important to remember. And I felt like, you know, I feel like there's just, I don't know if anybody identifies as femme out there, but there's this definite way of being, of it's like femme erasure, where you think, oh, like, or femme invisibility, where it's like, if you're femme, then you're not queer, you know, and that's definitely happened to me, and you know, and it's like, I'm in a wonderful relationship with a very handsome trans man, and sometimes we pass, you know, and sometimes I'm like, okay, well, do people know that I'm queer? Like, maybe they don't know I'm queer. You know, it's like, it's we want to be visible. And sometimes that's why I wear rainbow, but I also just wear rainbow because I love it. And that's my rainbow. Yeah. Oh, I'm so excited for this next performer. I'm gonna give you an intro, so just you know, stretch it out, get ready. So the first time I saw this performer was at Lincoln Center. It was this incredible outdoor show that was created by Taylor Mack, and did you all also help to make the songs, or are they all Taylor and Mack? That's Taylor. Okay. So created by Taylor Mack, and it's this new show called The Bark of Millions, is that right? That is basically like a queer history. Each song is about a queer person in history. That's it. That's what's happening. So I saw this next performer. Like, I was way far. They do these amazing shows. Shanta is doing curation of Lincoln Center. It's incredible. And I saw this performer like far away, and I was like, who is that? I want to know them. Too. And so when I got the opportunity to make this show, I was like, I wonder if they want to do storytelling, because you know, they do drag, they sing, they write shows, but I didn't know if they wanted to do storytelling. So they did, and they're here. And their name is Klondike. I'm gonna read their incredible bio. Klondike is an alien tragic superstar. Child of a black hole and a supernova, raised by a fourth-dimensional rock star, experimental musical theater composer, House of Quench member, and winner of Cake Boys 2021 Take the Cake competition. They are here to terrorize norms out of existence through the great unifier, music. All right, welcome.
Hello, I'm Klondike, like the ice cream, but with a Y. You know where the Y goes. I say that every time I introduce myself, and I just met somebody the other day that was like, but it's not where you think. And I was like, it is right there. So I was like, I can't. Thank you, but no. But I not gonna sing, but when I got the prompt with my rainbow, I also always loved rainbow. I had like Mr. Sketch markers, those smelly markers, and I would do like one little cloud and then another cloud and then just like weird rainbow like to itself type of thing. And then I would like force people to buy them. I'd be like $50, $35. And they were just like, I didn't ask for a rainbow, and so the price just went up the more they denied. I'll do the rock sale, I do like bad portraits of people. I'm not a visual artist besides makeup. This is the best I can do. And so it would just be like a very poor caricature of a person. And they'd be like, oh, okay. So I didn't get no odds. But when I thought of my rainbow, I thought of like the kind of like building blocks of like, I feel like a lot of trans people, like I'm trans non-binary, trans mass technically, but I don't know. So, but yeah, I had a lot of moments of like looking back, like, oh, that was very trans. Oh, okay, I should have known. If anyone had been like, hey, that's what trans is, I would have been like, oh, I picked that one. But I didn't know. So I have a couple little like stories from my childhood of things that were just like very cute trans moments. And the first one was the fact that I was Batman for Halloween for like age 3, 4, and 5. Like one of my earliest memories being at a party city with my mom and just like almost in tears, being like, Mom, I do not have pecs. I do not have muscles. I don't have any of these things. If I'm gonna be Batman, that's all the muscles included. I'm so adamant about it. There's a picture of me somewhere in the ether that of like, you know, a typical preschool like Halloween party where it's like the girls are like Angelica from Rugrats and the boys are Power Rangers, princesses, all right. And so there's like people like sitting and smiling, and then I'm in the corner like like a little like Batman costume on, like a foot away from everyone else. And my mom was like, that's my kid. Yeah. Why they like it? But that's what we're gonna do. And so I was Batman, and then just like different boys. I was like, I'm Lil Bow Wow. I'm a 30s gangster. Like, and I was like, and I grew up in Rochester, which is like cold. So it was like, oh, I'm wearing boys' clothes and a boys' jacket that was like hand me down from Land's End. So I just looked like a little boy who didn't wear a costume. I was just like a kid that was like, hello, can I have some candy? And I'm like, no. From this hoodie that I am obviously Little Bow Wow from Mike, like, and they were like, no, but if you take candy, will you leave? And I was like, so that's the first one. And then the second one is, yes, okay, so my family was weird and religious and like very insular. So we would go on these like very like extravagant trips that no one could afford. It was a lot of like, we were like a very kind of like couponing family. Oh, we're going to JCPenney. Like there's a sale on apples, so let's just get too many apples because it's on sale. But and then we would go like, we're going to the Four Seasons. And be like, what? Like no one can pay their rent. But like my grandfather would be like, oh, we're gonna do this very megalomaniac type thing. But I was like 6 or like 7, 8. So I was like, I would have been happy to go on the other side. Like me going to the library to get like my Inuyasha manga, like was like the highlight of my life. So I was like, sure, I would have been happy anywhere. And so we were at like a Dick's Sporting Goods in Vegas at like 8, which is I've been to Vegas 3 times, never was of age. I was 7, then 8, 17. I've not been back. But so if you ever find yourself in Vegas and you need like, do I take this child? I probably have one. But if you do, there's a great water park. We were dancing for like 45 seconds. They're like, yep, it's a hole in that. There's water over there, and then there's water over here. And that's it. But my mom was a Virgo, and she was very excited. Oh, I'm also a Leo. Like, and I have a Scorpio moon and Aquarius, so I just get more intense the more I go inside. And then I have a Leo, Mercury, and Venus, so this makes a lot of sense. But anywho, we were in Vegas, and I grew up at Dick's Sporting Goods, not that there aren't Dick's Sporting Goods where I grew up, but it was fancy. Had a nice, like, what do you call them? The proscenium of the building was all like gilded and stuff. We were like, ooh, just not like the socks are $30. Like, but we get there and I saw the most like beautiful like tracksuit, and not like a juicy couture tracksuit. We're talking like basketball shorts and like a basketball like jersey. And I was like, this is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. Like, I must have it. It must be mine. And my mom was like, it's like $50. You're gonna grow out of it. Like, so now what I'm doing it. And then a friend of the family who eventually became my brother-in-law was like, I'm gonna put $5 toward it. He was like 60. He was like, I got $5 toward it. And another cousin was like, I got $3. And my mom was like, I got $2. And I'm just like Miyazaki tears. Like, yeah. My mom was like, so we got it like 2 sizes too big because she was like, you're gonna wear this every day. I can feel it now. And and she was right. It was like she would have to like hide it from me in order to wash it because I would be like, wait, I trust it. And then she'd be like, it smells so good. We've been outside for days. But we just needed to have some, like, you're going to school tomorrow, you already are a weird kid, like we don't want to get more stuff to pick up. Just like there's no reason for you to smell. Like, and so we got this tracksuit and I wore it like every single day. And looking back, I was like, yeah, that was just a little gay boy. And so I would wear this tracksuit and then show up at like the boys down the street. I had a crush on this boy named Ryan for like all of my childhood. He was just like, oh. But it wasn't saying like I want to like hold his hand. I was like, I want to like wrestle. I want to kiss him. And so I would remake like truth or dare and be like, I dare you to kiss me on the mouth. And be like, boy, I was like, exactly. What's weird? I was like, I want you to want me and I want to look like. And then 15 years later, I was like, oh, because I'm closer to a gay man than anything else. So that made sense. But at the time, they were like, that's gay. And I was like, no, it's not. And I'm like, what's gay? But I remember showing up being like, yeah. And I mean, I thought these boys were cool because they were in like a Rush cover band. Like age, like if I was like 8, they would have been 6. No, they would have been 7, 9, and like 11. So I was like, oh, these are the coolest boys in the world. I don't know what Rush is, but they asked me to sing Limelight because none of it was thing. They were a cover band, but none of them sang. It was a drummer, a bassist, and a keyboard. And then they were all just like in their dad's basement, just like, and I was just like, chew up, because I was like, I was raised on like Motown and stuff, so I was like, I don't know what these players are. But that was just me like living out my gender oats, like at a very young age, like to the chagrin of most people. And then around like 5th grade, I got really into like vests and fedoras. But instead of wearing them with like dress clothes, I wear them with like basketball shorts and a t-shirt, and then put a vest and top of the fedora over it. And then the Johnny Depp Willy Wonka movie came out. Oh, what a time. I loved it. I thought it was so weird. The first movie was terrifying. I was like there's no early way, no. I was like, why? No. I was like, I don't know in the world would be doing that. Also, the fact that Augustus Gloop does not have a seat on the boat means he knew that there were going to be kids that didn't make it along the way. Oh, yeah. There's only enough seats for the people that make it to the boat. And every time they go somewhere else, there's only enough room for the people that make it. Yeah. So, heard, but it makes you think. But the Willy Wonka one, the Johnny Depp one, I just loved it for some reason. It was really like a fixation point for me at like 10. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna be Willy Wonka for Halloween. But when you say that, everyone assumes it's gonna be the Gene Wilder one. And so I was like, no, dude, I have the Bob already. Okay. It's still Prince is already like sitting there. And so it was just like, I have the majority of the outfit, right? Like the personality and the hair. I went to Goodwill, got myself a little 3-piece suit with like pinstripe, and I got a little top hat. And then my best friend at the time told me that she wanted to be Puff Daddy from Halloween. And we were like, great, I'll be Willy Wonka, you'll be P. Diddy, we'll be best friends, we'll walk down the hallway. And then they showed up to school wearing like a 70s pink costume. It was like a wide brim with like the fur trim, like the long coat. It was like a zoot suit mixed with like a 70s pink costume. But I think that they were latchkey kid, and so I think her mom was like, "Kid over city is independent," and misread Pimp Daddy for Puff Daddy. So it was really Wonka and a Pimp I guess, like, I've tried very hard to make a safe little bubble around my clearly autistic child. We didn't figure that out until like a year ago, so we're, no one is, but, like that, so around the same time as Willy Wonka, I had a huge crush on my gym teacher, named Kevin Hunt, who, and like it was all sparked because he was like my fourth grade teacher's like best friend. So he was like an usher at his wedding. So like, and my teacher invited us to his wedding that year because he was like, yeah, like I've known, like, us, bring your parents, it'll be cute. I've never been to a Catholic wedding before, so I was so confused. I was like, why are they kneeling? Why are they getting snacks? Like, I didn't understand any of what was going on. And then, but he, like, the gym teacher was there, like, in a nice suit, like walked us all in. I'm really, like, he was so tall, he wasn't in gym shorts, I've never seen him in pants before. And so I was inspired to like dress like my gym teacher. And so I would wear like tank tops and like really stretch them out and then tuck my like basketball shorts into them and hike them all the way up. Like, and then like really drawstring them, like really cinch the waist, always meant to drive. And my mom would just be like, why are we doing this? Like, you look a little bonkers. And I'd be like, oh, I was my gym teacher. As if that was gonna, she'd be like, why is that the goal? Is that what you want from life? And I was, I don't know, that was the thing I had. So that was another thing of this, like, yeah, you just want to look like a little boy. Or like I remember one time I went to the grocery store, my hair is pretty short for most of my childhood. And I had a big winter hat on, and there was my mom was like, pick up the groceries, help me carry it to the car. And it was this guy, the cashier went, it's nice to see a young man helping his mom with the groceries. And I was just like, we've gone this way every day for my entire life, and yet he thought I was a boy. And my mom was like, oh, she's a girl, and I was like, dream dash. But I didn't know that I had those dreams, so I was like, why am I crying? But anyway, I'll leave it now. And then, so it was a lot of this kind of like, oh, I don't know why that's so weird, but I would just love this other gender piece. And then I got to college, and I went to Sarah Lawrence, and they had this thing, gay by May or your money back. It was like, and I was the first to meet the name, but I really was like, friend getting one of like you tap the J hit like through your mouth, and I was like had everything everywhere all at once. I was like, what, that hits different. And then I realized like that summer that I was like, oh, I'm not only attracted to men, oh, I am also not a woman. I'm gonna shave my head. I think that's just the safest way. I think that is just the best way to get the ball rolling. Everyone else will kind of know what that. So I went, and then I shaved my head, and I looked at my. It was one of the, like one of the things about my whole, like experience of gender as a child was that it was a lot of me and my mom going against each other because. Not because she was like, it wasn't like she's the man where it was like, oh, why don't you want to be a debutante? It was like, I don't know why we have to wear this, but you have to. And my mom might be a little bit too. But we're both going through our side of returns. I'm just, we're holding out hope. My partner always said she just needs to find the right like queer African studies teacher. And like, it was just pull over to the dark side. And so like this through line of like it being like every picture day, me and my mom fighting each other for weeks. She was a Virgo, so like 3 weeks early. She was like, I brought you home something. What do you think? And I was like, I hate it. Every time I was like, I don't want to wear this. It's frills on it. It's pink or it's something. And then one like fourth grade, my dad was just over it one year. He was just like, we're going to JCPenney's, everyone getting the car. And then we got like just like stony silence in the car. I was like, and then he makes a beeline for the boys section, just picks up like a nondescript jersey with a huge 45 on it, and just goes, "Do you like this?" Yeah. My mom was like, "Well, you're wearing this." My mom was like, "You're wearing this a picture day." Like, and my dad was like, "Is it more important that you like what they're wearing, or that they like what they're wearing?" And my mom was like, so most of my pictures were mostly strained, like I'm wearing women's clothing and I want to die. And then there's like my fourth grade picture of my hair completely slicked back, softball and a knit necklace and like a football jersey. I'm just like beating. I'm just like, yeah. It's like this. Yeah. And these are play clothes and fancy clothes. I was like, that was wild. So I was like, my dad was goated for that exact moment. A lot of the rest of the time, he was just kind of like, "Oh, I'm a little whisper in the dark." Present but absent. But in that moment, he really was like, "Yeah." And then I got to college and I shaved my head, and I was like, I looked exactly like his father. I was like, "That's so cool," because it's like, oh, okay, people might not cheat me when I go outside. But I was like, dang. Like, do I want to look at this guy that's given me one good like gender moment in my entire life? It's kind of struggle with it since. Whereas like my mom, on the other hand, like I bought a binder once, like when I was early in college, and she was just like she lost it. And like a lot of our dynamic before that, was, if she got mad, it's because I did something wrong. Chores, didn't do my homework on time, like that kind of thing. That was the first time I was like, actually didn't do anything wrong. Like, you're just scared. And I was like 20, so the first time being like, I here. I was Virgo, did my research. It was cost effective. I told you before I got here. All these things you taught me. Like I was like, no. But not that happened. I was like, oh, okay. Yeah, she was like, I'm just nervous. You don't want to cut your tits off, and you want to go on hormones. It's an early choice. I was like, I'm not gonna do any of that. Yeah, I had to change. But now we have a great relationship. Like a couple of years ago, she lives in Atlanta. She like found like a black-owned bakery in Brooklyn and was like, "Will you make a trans cake for my son?" And was like, "I need these specific colors and like watercolor looking cake." And I just like, it's so sweet. And so it's like been a beautiful a rainbow of like a journey through figuring out what my gender was. And then I was like, okay, I'm a man. Great. And then I kind of saw how the world is as a man, and I was like, gross. Ice cream shop. Because I was wearing like little like it was an old timey ice cream shop, so it had like little like paper hat and like apron, and so I looked like I was like a little more sense like I have. And then all these like instructors were like, "Hey, how you doing? Isn't she hot?" And I was like, "No, I don't know what you thought I was giving, but I don't want to do that." I went to a French festival in Australia, and I was like wearing dresses and stuff, and I was like, "Oh, I wish I could do this back where I live." And I was like, "I live in Brooklyn. I can't wear anyone I want in Brooklyn that I really." It's not a location. It used to be, but it's not that anymore. And so I started like opening up my gender presentation, opened up my gender identities, and now I'm non-binary, gender fluid, or just kind of like a weird fish person more than anything. I say that Claude comes from a galaxy in between Chromatica and Star Wars. Like I'm right in that triangle, the middle triangle of space that is Lady Gaga and Luke Skywalker. That's where I kind of fit. Maybe with a little bit of like Le Petit Prince, just being like, shoot through space. But then I said crashed into a bodega and then a cat put a Klondike on my forehead. And I was like, this is who I am. So it's been a meandering journey, like the rainbows I used to draw when I was a kid. But I'm very happy with where I'm at. And love rainbows. That's my rainbow.
Oh my god, thank you, Klondike, that was incredible. And, you know, if you wanted to leave that skirt here, really cute. Oh, another round of applause. Well, you know, it's funny, every time I do tell, I say where we. Okay, well. There's certain places that people go where they do some things. And if you've been to any of the other tells that I've been at, Dre often talks about how I invited Dre to one of the things that when I met them, that I invited them to one of the things that people do certain things at those places. And at one of those places, that's where I met Lisette. And so, you know, I stopped going to those places. And I don't know, did you stop going as well? Yeah, we both stopped going to those places. And since then, I've gotten to see them outside those places, which is better. Better outside of those places. And they really, it's been a joy to see them grow and change and become a really incredible, beautiful person. And also, they sent their bio, which I'm about to read to you all because it's pretty incredible. I didn't know a lot of these things until I read their bio. Lisette is a Black queer artist, activist, and filmmaker. As a former homeless youth and graduate of the Reciprocity, I can read, the Reciprocity Foundation, Lisette developed a love for yoga and meditation. She credits her first acupuncture treatment as the first time she felt at home in her body. Armed with her new tools, Lisette spoke out the many ways trauma manifests in Black and Brown LGBTQ homeless youth. Acupuncture treatments, yoga, and mental health services have been supportive in speaking and finding the courage to heal. Inspired by the works of Audre Lorde, Lisette strives to make self-care and healing accessible to those in need and reduce barriers to healing. Lisette's activism has led to many creative endeavors, including an Emmy-nominated short documentary about the myths and causes related to youth homelessness. They were also nominated one of the top 40 under 40 by the Advocate magazine, and their work was featured on the cover of Gay City News. Lisette said, by prioritizing my healing and my truth, I give permission for others to commit to their healing journey and show up authentically. Please welcome to the stage, Lisette.
Thank you for editing that because my mother's gonna be watching this.
Oh, yeah.
I'm also gonna bring this chair up because chronic illness is a motherfucker.
Yeah.
So I wanted to, when I thought about my rainbow, I love rainbows, despite the fact that I wear all Black all day long. Like my entire closet is just like different shades of Black or Black and white. And so I was like, what does that mean to me? And I was just like, being queer is part of my identity, that no matter when I felt safe being out, or before I had language for my identity and my sexuality, it was there. And so like, thinking back to all the moments in my life where I'm like, like Klondike was talking about, and like just going back and thinking about all these moments, you're like, That was gay. That was gay. You know, like I'm first generation American. My parents are from Guyana. I grew up in Brooklyn. And you know, like my parents, my whole childhood, we were raised, you know, to be seen and not heard. And I had an older sister and an older brother, and I was never like my sister or my brother, but I was like borrowing both their clothes. You know, like I was the outspoken kid, I was the artist, and they didn't really get me. So I was always just like different. And you know, and it's like, so growing up in that house, they, you know, I was like the third kid. The thinking was really just that, like, they just think by the time I was born, my parents were like, all right, this should be easy. And then I showed up and they were like, why, you want to wear your brother's underwear? Okay. You know, like you want to color, you want to like color on the walls, and they just didn't get me. And so, you know, they just were like, well, you know what, you got 2 other kids, they'll watch her. We don't really have to raise her. You know, there's a lot of pressure when you're first generation American. You know, there's a lot of pulling between, you know, old traditions and being Guyanese and West Indian, and a lot of like just a lot of the like raising a little girl and to learn how to clean and learning how to be polite and learning how to like sit with your legs crossed and learning how to like, you know, being seen and not heard. And I was not fucking interested in that at all. But I also didn't have language for it. I didn't understand what it meant to be like, I didn't have to be a girl or a boy. I didn't understand that like, just the way that I was fine. And so like, I learned really early on to really just kind of compartmentalize things and to like, okay, so this thing is here. And if people don't receive that well, I'm just gonna I'm gonna roll up a little ball. I'm just gonna keep it safe. I'm gonna put it away. And so, but there were always these moments where I was reminded of myself. And one of the first few moments I realized that at least looking back, I'm like, that was really gay. Was watching Murphy Brown as a kid. Like, I love a pantsuit. And you know, it's like Murphy Brown, Candice Bergen, she always had these like really nice suits. You know, she had like power dyke energy. Like she you know. And you know, so like there was Murphy Brown. And then there was the X-Files. There's still the X-Files. And you know, it was like I was fascinated by science and medicine, but I was also like in love with Gillian Anderson. And so, you know, like I was like 9 when that show came out. And so what I did was I was like, in my mind as a 9-year-old, I was like, oh, I want to be Scully. So I went to a Catholic school. It's like 200 kids. We all wore like the maroon plaid uniform. You get like this little jumper dress thing. But I found out that there was pants, a pantsuit there. And I was like, oh, shit, I'm gonna be Scully at school. So I was like, you know, I was out of 200 kids, let's say 100 of them girls or AFAB, I wore maroon slacks, shoes with the little heel that made that click clack sound because that was important. Whenever you heard Scully, you always heard the click clack. And I had my pink shirt, and I, you know, and like all of my classmates were just like what? Do you have pants? And I was like, yeah, you have to just ask. If you ask them, they'll give you pants. You know, and they did like there were whispers of like me being a lesbian, and I was like, first of all, it was a Catholic school. I don't know if I mentioned that, but it was like, well, I'm not a lesbian because I didn't choose to be a lesbian, so joke's on you. And I'm just gonna like wear my pantsuit and be like silly and like you guys can be haters, you know. You know, and it was like, you know, it was graduating from that school. I was like, I'm done with that. I'm going to public school. I went from a school of like 200 kids to 4,000, which was holy macaroni. Yeah, like nuts. My graduating class alone was over 800 kids. So like I went to a school where everyone looked like me. And it was like, you know, it was like the first time I went to a school and I met other kids who like weren't from the Caribbean. And I was just like, okay, so you're Black, but your family's from North Carolina? But like their family, where are they from? They're like, North Carolina. I'm like, yeah, I got, but before that, you know, it was just like, I grew up around Church Avenue in Brooklyn, like everybody was from the Caribbean. We all ate the same food, we all like, you know, like made the same jokes, so like, it was just such a huge like culture change for me. And it was also when I met like my very first gay friend. And you know, like it took me like like 2 years to figure out she was gay. I just thought she was weird. But there were always these moments that like thinking back, there were a lot of moments where I'm like, I didn't quite understand it, but I was always there. There were always these elements of like who I was. And it was like meeting some of my queer friends in high school where I was suddenly like, okay, you know, and like also fighting some of my own internalized homophobia, you know, like going to Catholic school for 9 years, growing up in a family that was not very understanding or welcoming about queer, trans people. I had to fight a lot of the things that I was taught from age 4 or 5 years old. And it was just, there was a lot of like, okay, I'm gonna take this out when it's safe. I'm gonna take this out when I feel like I can be seen and I can be embraced. And unfortunately for me, and for a lot of people like me, I had to create that space. There wasn't going to be a place where I could, like, you know, there was never really like, oh, I'm gonna go home and put like throw my book bag down and be like, Mom, I'm school super rough today. You know, this boy, like that was not happening. Like I grew up in a family where we were all kind of like islands to each other. We all just like, I came home and I did my homework, I did my dishes, I went to bed. We all just kind of like lived kind of separately from each other. And it was just such, especially as a queer person who also just felt really misunderstood. It wasn't a very warm or affirming experience for me. And so, and then, you know, besides all those things, I was also being abused at home. So it was like, when I turn 18, I'm going to be able to like leave and be the person that I want to be. I'll be like super queer Lisette. I'll be, you know, so finally got accepted into Buffalo State. And I was like, oh yeah, here we go. Because, you know, I had some classmates who were like, okay, so, you know, you think you're bi, so like, why don't you try to talk to some girls in the school? And I was like, no. I need some new faces. I need also to be out of Brooklyn. I need to do all this gay shit in Buffalo. And that's what I did. And ironically, my very first girlfriend I met in college was from the Bronx. So you know, she wasn't even that far away, really. But it was like getting to go to Buffalo, and I was like, oh man, I'm gonna be so gay. I got all those stickers that like I can't even think straight. You know, it's like when you finally get to come out and you get to start fresh, you don't want anyone to assume that you're straight, even, but like you're just like I remember like we'd open my dorm room and it was like my side of the room, just rainbows, just like it was like we get it. Like we it's like I would get rejected for this in Brooklyn, but it's not gonna happen here. Figure it out. You know, this is what I'm bringing to the table. And so, yeah, it was like Buffalo was a really great experience. It was very, college in itself, I think, is pretty bisexual. Yeah, there's, people are figuring it out, they're trying things, and it was great. I dating girls and smoking cigarettes and trying therapy for the very first time. And going to therapy when you've had a lot of trauma, for the very first time, you're like, oh, I'm gonna go there, I'm gonna start talking, and then that person's gonna go, oh, you figured it all out, and now it's not just that anymore. And instead, I was just like, oh, I just told my therapist on campus all the shit that I've been holding in for like 17 years. And she's just walking around with her Diet Coke and she knows everything. And I feel like walking past the quad and like if I look at her and I'm like, like, hey, and I'm just like, oh God, like she knows all of it, and it was like that was my very first experience in therapy. Who ironically, I won't mention her name, but she did look like Melissa Etheridge, and I did have a crush on her. I haven't tried. But it was like, even, to survive Brooklyn and to survive my childhood, there was a lot of boxes, there were a lot of things that I had to kind of push down and until I felt safe enough. And so, and then I really realized that you never really get to a place in your life where everything is just right. There's never a moment where you're like, okay, when I get out of my, like when I turn 25, I'm going to get a car and then I'm going to be happy and then I won't be on antidepressants or whatever. And it's like, that's like, spoiler alert, it doesn't happen. And for me, it was like, there was always this like moving of the goalposts, like, okay, well, once this happens, then I'll figure it out and then I'll be happy and I can kind of let my shoulders down and all this stuff. And what, it was like, there was like 1 year in particular where I was dealing with some really, really bad depression. And I was just like, okay, I have to decide if I want to be here. I have to decide if I want to be alive, if I want to be who I am, if I want to really sit in my truth and not be afraid to be who I am in whatever ways that look like. And just as things are starting to kind of settle, I got really sick. And it was like, okay. And it was like in a way, God or the universe, whoever was like, you have been really reluctant about a lot of shit. You've acted like you don't really want to be here. You've acted like once this moment in your life happens, everything will be perfect. And it was like, well, guess what? I'm putting the pressure on you now. It's like, do you want to be here? Do you really want to be here? And like, you have to act on it. You can't just say, well, I'll decide next week. I'll decide next week if, at therapy, I'll decide the week after this if I want to really show up. But like having trauma, being queer, being Black, being AFAB, being fat, and then also being chronically ill, it was like suddenly all these things, it was like, this is you, this is your life, this is what you have. What are you gonna do with this? And so then it's just, it's like, I've dealt with homelessness, I've dealt with cancer more than once. And it's just been, and people always say to me, oh, like you're people like to say like you're resilient, whatever. And it's like, yeah, because I have to be, like, it's, for me, it's like, while I was young and I was healthy, there was always this thinking of later. And then when I wasn't, and then when I got sick and there was a possibility, even though I got diagnosed with skin cancer like 8 years ago. I'm in remission now. But it was like, but it was a very eye-opening experience because it was like, well, when you're someone who deals with depression, there's a lot of this like, well, what if I don't do anything? I don't want to do anything. Everything sucks. I don't want to do anything. And it was like, my doctor was like, I was like, well, if I don't want to do radiation, like what happens? He was like, well, you know, you can lose your arm. And I was like, okay, so let's do radiation. Let's get that out of the way. You know, but just, for me, there was a lot of feeling of, if I can't have it the way that I want it, then I don't want to do it. And so I was just kind of just dragging my feet, dragging my heels for years and years and years. And it was like, when my life got threatened, I was suddenly like, oh shit, okay. I have to make decisions and do things every single day to be here, to be alive, to be healthy. And every single day is real, because like I have appointments like 6 days a week, you know, but it's like, the thing, when I think about my rainbow and I think about the parts of me that I've had to sometimes keep safe, I've had to kind of hold or like compartmentalize. Those are also the things that give me like the greatest joy, because it's given me community. It's like I meet people with all kinds of incredible experiences and worldviews, and it's so much bigger than I could have imagined if I didn't question my sexuality, if I didn't listen to the things in my soul, if I didn't look at Scully like, you know. So for me, like my rainbow is not just like my identity. It's not just about like being queer, but it's about like my resilience and this like spark inside of me that is determined to live and not just survive, but to thrive, and to connect with other people, and to say like, it's okay to be messy, it's okay to be messy and still do it. It's okay to be sweaty and still do it. You know, like you show up, you just try to figure it out, and you just be real, and you leave room for other people to be messy too. Because we're all just fucking human, just trying to get through the day, just trying to get through a lot of things that we don't get, that we've never gotten a manual. So yeah, so I might wear all black 99% of the time, but I like to say that the rainbow, that black is all the colors.
Thank you. Yeah, black actually is absorb. It's the rainbow absorbs all the colors. Yeah. So yeah, it is all the colors. Thank you again, Lisa. Another round of applause. Our next performer and I met taking acting classes on Zoom, and when we got to meet in person, I was like, whoa. I was like, she's amazing, because it's like this funny thing about acting online. It's like we don't get to like see each other's personalities, and oftentimes with screen acting, you feel like you have to like fit into this like thing, this like certain way of being, of like what kind of person you have to look like. I mean, you know, I'm sure those of you at home, you know, watch television or movies, so you know what that is, and it's like it's really exciting to do, but it's also hard to like find that individuality. And this next performer, storyteller, is one of those people where I'm like, yeah, you still got it, you're still you, you know, you're acting, but you're you, and it's really, anyways, it's been a joy to get to know you. And so when I had this opportunity to invite someone to come perform, you were on that list, and so I'm glad you said yes. So Nadia Iqbal is a writer, an actress, a comedian based in Brooklyn, New York. Where Brooklyn, New York is. She is a certified cat lady and an official citizen oral historian for the 1974 Partition Archive. Oh my God, sometimes I get a little dyslexic when I'm tired. So cute. 1947 Partition Archive. Okay, that's definitely different. All jokes aside, she's still very mad about colonialism, as am I. Welcome, Nadia. Yeah, it's a bit different. It's
I just wanted to say a couple of things. I'm from Buffalo. I'm from a suburb. I'm from Williamsville. So like I was gonna say Western New York represent, but Rochester's not. So places that had Wegmans in the 90s represent. Yeah, okay. Upstate, yeah. I need the water. I am diabetic. Then like when my sugar is high, like my mouth gets dry. I mean, like my arm could break and I'd just be like diabetes. But like, you know, if I pass out, you should call 911 if you don't want me to die. But I mean, if you're all fine with it, I'm fine with it. Okay, so I'm gonna get started then with my story. So when I just have to do some jokes. It's like I can't not. It's a compulsion. When I was in college, we had like a tie-dye night. And our shirts had like the crest of our dorm on them, and then I tie-dyed it in a rainbow because I like rainbows. And this is the story of how I ended up there. It's called Dabney. We'll get into that. So like I went to Caltech for college. And before that, this is very important. I went to an all-girls Catholic high school. And Caltech is like MIT, but on the West Coast, and it's significantly fucking weirder. When I was younger, when I was a child, I used to think that I was introverted. And before I went to Caltech, even though I had matriculated, I had no idea what it was going to be like, and I was like absolutely terrified that I wouldn't make any friends, because in right before middle school, like in middle school, I didn't make any friends, and in high school, I felt like I didn't really make any friends, and so I was like absolutely terrified, and when I matriculated also, my class had the highest percentage of women to matriculate ever into Caltech, and it was 36%.
Wow.
Yeah, and there were 250 people in my class tops, so like I was one of fewer than 100 women from that class. Like and I said, I was coming from an all-girls Catholic high school. When you arrive at Caltech, you are placed in temporary housing, and you have to do this thing called rotation, where you have lunch and dinner at all of the dorms called houses. Except there's 8 of them. It is kind of like Hogwarts, but the magic is science. So you have lunch and dinner, and then at the end of the week, you like rank them, and by some like mysterious process, you are placed in one. And during that week, that first week, I was living in Dabney House. And for whatever reason, I was like, I'll go talk to people, because apart from my compulsion of telling jokes, I also have a very desperate desire to be the center of attention. So like I would go up and talk to the upperclassmen, and they'd be like, I went up to my friend now, Key, who had at this point had never met before, and started talking to him, and then like started giggling after everything, because I don't know, everything is funny to me. And he just kept being like, are you okay? And I found out later, like, so the thing is, the somewhat terrible thing is that like after each dinner, the upperclassmen leave. In Dabney, they would throw a smoke bomb and then just all walk away. And they basically, like, the premise was that like what we didn't know is that they were all talking about us and figuring out which ones of us they liked to be in the house. I know it's bad. I know. Well, don't worry. Stay with me. So I know after post that someone told me that during their discussion about me, they were like, someone was like, oh, she just must be on ecstasy. And you know, like, this was like 12 years ago. I'm like 34 now. And I thought I was like, maybe I've like calmed down with age, but actually I went on 2 dates last month where both of the men, sorry, heteronormativity trigger warning. The past 2 days I've been on with men, they're both like, did you just smoke? Are you high? Like you, and I'm like, so no, I don't. I barely have had THC and I have never done ecstasy. I'm just like this all the time. And it is exhausting. So I was getting to know the upperclassmen. There was one like RA night, which they had every year, and they would like have all of the upperclassmen meet some of the freshmen, and there'd be desserts that the RA would serve. And I remember I went up to one of the upperclassmen and I was like, so like, what's your favorite social event here in Dabney? And this tall white man with long blonde hair who wasn't wearing a shirt said his favorite social event was chugging milk. And yeah, right. So then what they would do is that they would chug gallons, like it is what it sounds like. They would chug gallons of milk together, and then they would go to the courtyard of the other house that they didn't like. And then one of them, because they just chugged a gallon of milk, would puke, and it'd just be like a steady stream. And then he was like, yeah, and then after that, you could just go to sleep like a baby. And I was like, you contain multitudes. That man has a PhD in pure mathematics from Princeton University. America's best and brightest. Then he just I just go around, and I just want to say that one of the things that I forgot to say up top, a lot of people who ended up in Dabney ended up being, you know, a little bit gay. In fact, like a lot of people that I met from there, like, will reach out to me years later and be like, Nadia, I should tell you something. And I'd be like, oh no, what did I do? Like, what terrible thing did I do 10 years ago that you're going to tell me about that I did, that I'm going to remember for every single night for the rest of my life? What is it? But I wouldn't actually say, I'd just be like, yeah. And then they'd be like, I'm trans. I'm like, oh God. The thing is, I don't know, like, I guess I didn't have as much self-awareness as I do now. But even though I had hung out there all week, I'm just trying to remember if there's any other weird fucking stories. No, it's good. And at the end of the week, the freshmen ranked the houses, and I ranked Dabney 4th. And you know, then like they do this thing where like the cannon fires, and then everybody runs and sees which house they're in. And yeah, it's weird. Yeah, it's fucking weird. I was going to go do my running, but they had already took a poster out for Dabney, and I was on the poster, and I was so sad. And then the first week of like post rotation, then like the first dinner during the week, like everyone has dinner together, all of the new freshmen and all of the upperclassmen. And the first dinner, I think the first thing was that someone got up and started reading an excerpt from Brief Interviews with Hideous Men by David Foster Wallace. And it was specifically the story where the guy is like, I don't know, I have no idea why it happens, like, I don't even like politics, but every time I come, I say, victory for the forces of democratic freedom. And then literally all of the upperclassmen would say it as the narrator read it out loud. And I'm like, oh, okay, and it, like, you know, I'm just like, it is a little bit of a cult, it's bad. You know, bad and good, you know how those things are. And I was like, what is going on? And then what have I gotten myself into? And then the next thing was like, okay, so now we're gonna do Fire Frosh. Hi, everybody. We're gonna do Fire Frosh, and basically all of the freshmen are like, you know, tell your best story about fire, and then you get a prize. And the prize was the first room pick or whatever. It's really unimportant. I don't remember what the story was. It was not interesting. And then the next thing was Naked Fresh. Yeah, it's bad. It's bad. So like, I mean, it was 2007 and we didn't have Twitter and Tumblr to provide our moral compass. So basically they're like, okay, we're gonna do Naked Fresh. Basically, we're all gonna start betting money, and whichever one of you Frosh takes your clothes off will get the money. Yeah, it's bad. It's really bad. And so they start like, you know, like 10, 20, and like most of us are like looking at each other like, we're not fucking doing that because we all have a healthy amount of repression. And it gets to 60, and one of the guys from my class is like, okay, I'll do it. And I'm like, oh my God, like again, all girls high school, grew up in the suburbs, and I was like, oh my God, like, I've never even kissed a boy. I'm about to see like the full Monty, like, oh no, like also heteronormative phase, definitely. And I was like, oh no. And fortunately, he took his clothes off, but someone's head was directly in the line of sight of the most offensive part of his. And I was like, my virtue has remained intact. So, so they did Naked Fresh. And then we moved on from that. We're like, that was fucking weird. And so then all of the president of Dabney House was like, okay, all of the freshmen stand up. And then he called out Brigida, who's the secretary, who had been like dealing with, who made the poster, who had been dealing with staring at our names all week, because, you know, she's a secretary, it was her job. And she named all of us, like first and last name. And so then after she did that, they were like, okay, freshmen, all the freshmen sit down, all of the upperclassmen stand up. And they're like, okay, so now one of you has to name all of us. And if you win, we'll give you a car, Mount Everest. And there were some alums there, like one of them was pregnant. It was like, it's weird in retrospect that there were adults in the room. And they love that. Anyways, there were like, there was like a couple alum that was pregnant. They're like, our firstborn child. And I was like, I've been here all week. I know all these people. And so I start going around and naming them like Key and Zach and Ted, who later I learned is Alex Alemi, but they call him Boo, Maritza, Dolan, Gandhi, who I thought like they were calling him Gandhi because he was Indian, but it's actually his last name. That's what I thought. And then like, you know, one by one, like, you know, I have named most, there's like a little bit of tension in there. They're like, oh no, like, we made a bunch of promises that we can't keep. But I did miss like, I don't know, 5 to 10 of them. And they were so impressed. They gave me $18. And I didn't even have to take my clothes off. Wait, I mean, it's fine if you do that. I just want to make clear I'm not against sex work, but in this instance, I did make some money. And, you know, it was at this point, I began to realize that, you know, that's why I'm here, because I like them and they like me. And then I was like, oh, also, I'm not introverted. I've just constantly been surrounded by shitty people. And oops, yeah, that's my rainbow. So much so that. Thank you, Nadia. What a beautiful evening. I'm so glad Nicole was too young to have weird cool things like that. Once again, a round of applause. So those of you here in the room, and to those of you at home, we have now come to the end of the rainbow. And if you'd like to contribute to the pot of gold, the Venmo is BGSQD. It's at BGSQD. So that would be wonderful. And thanks so much for coming. Let's bring everybody back up for a little curtain call. Lisette, Nadia, I'm going to just bring it. Let's go. Let's bow. Why not? You want to take a screenshot?
I'm like, what do I do with my hands?
Jazz hands.
I think that's how you do it.
All right. All right.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Derek.
Thanks for everyone who joined us.
Yes.
That's cool.